Hi, everyone. Welcome to week 13. This week brings together two major areas of practice, family and group work, and our continuing focus on safety and mandated reporting. We'll look at what it means to hold structure in family sessions, avoid getting pulled into conflict, and assess for elder or child abuse using legal guidelines and clinical sensitivity. Here's what we'll be exploring: approaches to family and group interventions, staying grounded and ethical when families are in conflict, recognizing and reporting elder and dependent adult abuse, understanding and reporting child abuse and neglect, including medical neglect. As always, we're working to build your clarity, not just your compliance, so you can feel steady and clear in high stakes moments. Family work can be intense. Multiple perspectives, conflicting narratives, unspoken yet powerful interpersonal dynamics. It's very easy to get pulled in. So, here are some helpful foundational guidelines. Set your expectations early, such as one person speaks at a time, no yelling, no name calling. Don't take sides. Acknowledge that everyone is bringing pain, stress, and their own lens to the conflict. Stay grounded in active listening and neutral facilitation. Don't offer personal opinions. Don't diagnose on the fly. Don't really do anything on the fly. Keep redirecting toward shared goals. If a family situation, or for that matter, an individual situation, activates your own unresolved material, whether it's about parenting, family roles, power dynamics, notice it, name it in supervision, and if necessary, step back from that client or family system. We don't have to be the right fit for every client or every family. If you notice yourself getting activated by particular issues, that might also be a very good sign that you'd benefit from doing your own work in therapy. The best therapists I know, including myself, regularly participate in our own psychotherapy in order to keep our stuff separate from everybody else's. Finally, don't be afraid to pause a session if it's becoming emotionally or certainly physically unsafe. Your job is to maintain a space where everyone can meaningfully engage. And that may require slowing things down or even stopping things if they're beginning to tip out of control. This slide provides a quick recap of SFBT, which is highly applicable to family and group settings. You'll remember that SFBT is strengths-based and future-focused. Clients are seen as the experts in their own lives. The session arc is usually very brief, 4 to 8 sessions in total usually. And the therapist focuses on what's working, amplifying that, rather than targeting the problem. In family work, SFBT is helpful for redirecting blame and shifting energy from the problem or the problem person toward small, positive, actionable steps. It keeps the focus and the tone forward facing and encourages every family member to name what better might look like for them. As a social worker, you are, as you know, a mandated reporter for elder and dependent adult abuse in California and throughout the country, although every state's reporting laws are slightly different. You're required to report in California if you witness directly an incident, if you receive information or evidence about an incident, or if you hear a direct disclosure from an elder or a dependent adult about abuse, neglect, or exploitation. Phone reports need to be made as soon as possible in the county where the client lives. A written follow-up is due within 48 hours. And if the client has sustained serious bodily injury, law enforcement also needs to be involved immediately in no longer than 2 hours. Note that it's not your job to investigate the abuse or wait to make a report until you've confirmed or proved that abuse, neglect, or exploitation has occurred. That's not your job. That's the role of the adult protective worker or law enforcement. Your job is to report the concern clearly and promptly. It's someone else's job to ratify that report or to consider it unfounded, in which case the case will be closed. This chart outlines the 5 primary categories of elder and dependent adult abuse. As you look at each row, remember that these forms of abuse often overlap. They can be hard to detect, especially if the client doesn't name their experience as abuse. It's important to remember that financial abuse or financial exploitation is one of the most commonly reported forms of elder abuse, and it's often committed by family members or caregivers. Caregivers might coerce an older adult to transfer property, misuse their debit or credit cards, or even threaten to withhold care unless they're given money. Neglect can be intentional or unintentional, but the impact on the client is the same. It might involve things like missed medical appointments, failing to help somebody bathe or take medication, or isolating them from social connection. Physical and sexual abuse often go unreported, especially when the victim is dependent upon the abuser for care. Elements such as shame, confusion, or cognitive decline can all be barriers to disclosure. Emotional and psychological abuse is harder to document, but it can be just as damaging, especially when the client is continually belittled or threatened with abandonment or cut off from meaningful social interaction. If you suspect abuse, don't rely on a single element or symptom. Instead, look for patterns, repeated missed appointments, evidence of tension between a client and a caregiver, changes in mood or presentation. Trust your instincts and, as always, consult with your supervisor if something feels off. This slide lists example screening questions from the EASY tool, the EASI tool. For example, if you notice poor hygiene, bruises, withdrawn behavior, malnourishment, inconsistent medication use, these may point to abuse or neglect. It's really helpful to let the client know they're not in trouble. You might say, I'm asking these questions because I care about your safety. You don't have to go through this alone. This slide summarizes the main categories of child abuse and neglect, as well as what doesn't fall under the legal definition in California. But what's important for you to know as a future social worker and clinician is that child abuse and elder or dependent adult abuse are reported differently. So you need to be precise about how, when, and to whom you report. Child abuse is reported to Child Protective Services, CPS, in the county where the child lives, and you must file a phone report immediately as soon as you know about the incident, followed by a written report within 36 hours. By contrast, elder and dependent adult abuse is reported to Adult Protective Services, and in cases involving serious bodily injury, elder abuse reports also need to go directly to law enforcement within 2 hours. Another key difference is that when you're reporting suspected child abuse, you're legally protected, even if the report turns out to be unfounded, as long as it was made in good faith. So, again, you're not expected to investigate the allegation. In fact, it's essential that you don't investigate. Your job is to observe, listen, document, and report your suspicions. Always err on the side of safety. And if you're not sure, consult with your supervisor. Notice there's a theme. You're not meant to do this work alone. Consult with your supervisor. And even long after you're out of school and you're independently licensed, after the state says you don't need a supervisor anymore, you should still have consultants in a peer consultation group or an individual consultant. You're meant to consult with colleagues, and as a student, you are meant to consult with your supervisor about any case involving potential risk. This slide outlines the key elements of what constitutes medical neglect. In practice, these situations aren't cut and dry. As a social worker, you may be the first person to notice when something doesn't seem right. So you might want to watch for parents or caregivers who delay or avoid treatment, especially when they seem overwhelmed or mistrustful of the medical system or unsure of what's required. You might also notice caregivers who decline treatment for religious or philosophical reasons, even when a child's health is clearly worsening, or situations in which appointments are chronically missed, prescriptions aren't picked up, and the caregivers resist specialist referrals. Families may not be neglectful out of malice. They may be legitimately experiencing trauma, poverty, language barriers, cultural mistrust. Your role is to document what's happening clearly and factually without interpreting a family's motives. It's also worth remembering that the legal threshold for medical neglect depends on both the risk to the child and the availability of care. So, for instance, if a parent lacks transportation or insurance, that's different than outright refusal to seek available care. As before, when in doubt, consult and document. If you believe that a child's health is being compromised and the caregiver understands the risks, then it's time to consult with your supervisor and quite likely to make a report. As a reminder, here's what's required of you when reporting child abuse or neglect. You must report by phone as soon as possible in the county where the child resides, and you must submit a written report within 36 hours. If you're not certain, consult with your supervisor and make the call. You don't need proof. If you're wrong, the agency will document and then close the case. If you're right, a child's life might change for the better because you spoke up. This week's content asks a lot of you, ethically, emotionally, practically. And it's exactly the kind of clarity you'll need as a social worker when tensions are high, when people are hurting, when safety is on the line. When in doubt, stay grounded, consult with your supervisor, and follow reporting laws. You're not alone in these decisions, but you are ethically and legally responsible for the decisions you make and the actions you take or don't take. So, spend time with this week's readings and journal reflections, and if anything comes up, emotionally or logistically, reach out. You got support here. See you again next time.